In 1947, a discovery in the desolate Qumran caves of the Dead Sea sent shockwaves through the world. Ancient scrolls, some of the oldest surviving biblical manuscripts, were uncovered, hidden for millennia. These texts, known as the Dead Sea Scrolls, were believed to hold secrets that could change our understanding of Christianity, Judaism, and the prophecies of the end times. But what do the Dead Sea Scrolls really reveal about the end of the world? Why did these ancient texts remain hidden for so long, only to be discovered in the 20th century? The scrolls contain fragments of nearly every book in the Old Testament, but they also contain something far more mysterious. Hidden prophecies that speak of judgment, the coming of a Messianic figure, and the ultimate battle between good and evil. These apocalyptic visions align closely with the prophecies found in the book of Revelation, but also offer new interpretations that could change how we view the end of days. Some scholars believe that the Dead Sea Scrolls contain prophecies that have yet to be fulfilled. These texts include references to Armageddon, a great tribulation, and the rise of a messianic figure who will bring about the final battle between the forces of light and darkness. Among these ancient scrolls is a particularly mysterious manuscript called the War Scroll, which describes in vivid detail the final confrontation between the forces of good and evil. According to this text, the battle of the end times will be fought between the sons of light, those who follow God, and the sons of darkness, those who follow the forces of evil. What makes the War Scroll especially fascinating is its timing. The scroll doesn't just describe a future battle, it also gives precise details about the events leading up to this final confrontation. It speaks of bloodshed, divine intervention, and a heavenly army descending to destroy the forces of evil. But why was this scroll hidden? Why didn't it make its way into the official scriptures of the Bible? The answer lies in its radical vision. The War Scroll is not just a prediction of the future, it's a call to arms, an invitation to prepare for the ultimate showdown between light and darkness. This kind of apocalyptic thinking was dangerous to those in power. The church, and later religious institutions, could not allow such a violent and destabilizing vision to circulate freely, especially in times of political unrest. But the mystery of the Dead Sea Scrolls doesn't end with the War Scroll. These texts also contain fragments of prophecy that speak of a figure who will appear at the end of days. This figure is known as the Teacher of Righteousness, a messianic leader who will guide the faithful through the final trials of humanity and lead them to victory against the forces of evil. The Teacher of Righteousness is depicted as a divine messenger, chosen by God to prepare the world for the coming judgment. This figure is often associated with John the Baptist, and some even believe that the Teacher of Righteousness may have had a connection to Jesus Christ himself. The Dead Sea Scrolls hint at a return of this figure, who will emerge to restore justice and establish God's kingdom on earth. But there's more. The scrolls also contain references to the book of Daniel, which describes the rise and fall of kingdoms in the end times. According to the book of Daniel, a final empire will emerge, one that will rule the world and prepare the way for the coming of the Messiah. This final empire is believed by some to be represented by the forces of darkness, and the book of Daniel warns that the end times will be marked by deception, where false leaders will deceive the masses and lead them astray. This aligns with the War Scroll and the prophecies of Revelation, which speak of false prophets, antichrists, and corruption in the final days. So why are these texts so significant today? Because they are not just ancient writings, they are warnings, written by those who believed they were living in the last days. And in the world we live in today, where we face rising tensions, wars, and a global crisis, these ancient warnings seem more relevant than ever. The Dead Sea Scrolls offer a unique perspective on the end times, one that has been hidden for centuries and only now is beginning to emerge. These ancient manuscripts may provide the final piece of the puzzle, helping us understand the apocalyptic visions that have been foretold for thousands of years. As we delve deeper into the Dead Sea Scrolls, it becomes clear that these manuscripts are not just about the future of humanity. They also contain hidden truths about the nature of God and the spiritual journey of mankind. These scrolls shed light on a spiritual awakening that will take place in the last days, and offer us clues about how we can prepare for the final tribulation. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Dead Sea Scrolls is their connection to the Book of Revelation. Scholars have long debated whether the War Scroll was the inspiration for John's vision of Armageddon, or if the scrolls themselves were a preliminary prophecy that later influenced Christian apocalyptic texts. But what we know for sure is that both the War Scroll and the Book of Revelation share common themes: a final battle between the forces of good and evil, a heavenly army intervening in the affairs of humans, and the destruction of the forces of darkness. Both texts also speak of divine judgment, where the faithful are rewarded and the wicked are destroyed. The Dead Sea Scrolls also speak of a coming figure, the Messiah, who will arrive in the last days to defeat the forces of evil and establish God's kingdom on earth. But the scrolls make it clear that this figure will not come as a savior in the traditional sense. The Messiah will not be a ruler who brings salvation through sacrifice. Instead, the Messiah will be a spiritual leader who awakens the divine potential in every person and leads them to victory over the forces of darkness. This is where the apocalyptic visions of the Dead Sea Scrolls become incredibly important. The end times are not just about a future event. They are about a spiritual awakening that will happen in the hearts of the faithful. The scrolls describe a time when humanity will realize their divine nature and will rise up against the forces of evil and oppression. One of the most significant texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls is the Thanksgiving hymns, which reveal how the community at Qumran viewed the coming of the Messiah. The hymns describe the teacher of righteousness, a messianic figure who will restore justice and purify the faithful. This figure will teach humanity how to connect with God directly and awaken their divine power. The teacher of righteousness is described as a spiritual guide, not a political leader, whose purpose is to lead the people to a higher consciousness and divine unity. These texts also reveal the spiritual warfare that will take place before the arrival of the Messiah. The War Scroll speaks of the sons of light, those who follow God, and the sons of darkness, those who serve evil. This battle is not just a physical one, but a spiritual one, where the faithful must awaken to their inner power and rise up against the forces that seek to divide and oppress them. The Battle of Armageddon in the Book of Revelation shares many similarities with the descriptions in the Dead Sea Scrolls. In both texts, there is a final conflict between light and darkness, where the forces of good ultimately triumph over evil. But what the War Scroll and other apocalyptic texts of the Dead Sea Scrolls teach us is that this battle is not just about a future event. It's about spiritual awakening. It's about the divine power that lies dormant within each of us, waiting to be awakened and used to overcome evil. What makes the Dead Sea Scrolls so significant today is that they offer a new perspective on the end times, one that focuses not on destruction, but on transformation. The end times aren't just about judgment and death. They are about spiritual rebirth and awakening to the truth that has been hidden from humanity for centuries. The Dead Sea Scrolls are not just ancient writings. They are messages for our time. The world today is facing unprecedented challenges: wars, division, corruption, and spiritual confusion. But the truth of the scrolls is clear. The spiritual awakening of humanity is the key to overcoming these challenges. The Messiah will not come to save us from the outside. The Messiah is already within us, waiting for us to awaken to our true divine nature. As we approach the end times, the Dead Sea Scrolls offer us more than just ancient predictions about the final battle. These manuscripts give us a roadmap, a spiritual guide that can lead us through the trials and tribulations of the apocalyptic age. The scrolls remind us that the Messiah we've been waiting for isn't a distant figure who will descend from the heavens with divine wrath. Instead, the Messiah is a spiritual awakening that lives within each of us. The teacher of righteousness described in the scrolls is not a king or conqueror, but a guide, a leader who shows us how to connect with our divine essence and awaken our spiritual power. This message is at the heart of the Dead Sea Scrolls. The War Scroll, which describes the final battle between the sons of light and the sons of darkness, is not just about a future war. It's about the battle within, the conflict between our higher self and the forces of negativity, fear, and control that have held us back for centuries. The spiritual warfare described in these ancient texts is happening right now. The sons of light are those who are awakening to their true spiritual power, while the sons of darkness represent the forces of oppression, greed, and division that continue to spread chaos in the world. The apocalypse is not a singular event in the future. It is a process that is happening in every moment, as humanity awakens to its true purpose and divine potential. The scrolls teach us that the end times are not about doom and destruction. They are about transformation. The tribulation described in the book of Revelation is not a time of suffering, but a time of awakening, when the spiritual truth buried deep within each of us will come to the surface, allowing us to rise above the darkness and reconnect with the divine. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you." This powerful statement is at the core of the message contained in the Dead Sea Scrolls. The end times are not about waiting for salvation from an external source. They are about awakening the divine that already exists within us. The scrolls show us that we are not helpless beings waiting for a savior. We are divine beings who have the power to transform the world from within. And this transformation begins with us. Each of us must awaken to the truth of who we are. We must recognize our divine nature and tap into the spiritual power that resides within. The Messiah is not a future figure. The Messiah is within us, waiting to be awakened. It is up to each of us to embrace this truth and take responsibility for our spiritual journey. The War Scroll speaks of the final battle, but it's not just about defeating external forces. It's about conquering the darkness within, overcoming fear, and embracing the light. The battle is already being fought, and the forces of light are winning. We are witnessing the spiritual awakening of humanity, and the end times are not about the destruction of the world, but the transformation of humanity. So, as we move forward, we must remember the teachings of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the ancient wisdom they contain. We must recognize that the end times are not something to fear, but something to embrace. The Messiah is already here, not in the form of a singular figure who will come to save us, but in the form of the divine spark within each of us that can transform the world and bring us back to our true divine nature. The Dead Sea Scrolls are not just ancient writings. They are a call to action, an invitation to awaken and embrace the divine light within. The time for waiting is over. The time for awakening has come.